Today we're continuing with the Teal Tango collection to create a beautiful floral design. I'll be showing you how to create collage flowers, to add layers and textures to your backgrounds, and to create a piece of art that you'll love to frame. Let's get started. Here I have the papers that I chose from this collection. So I did the petals on the painted paper and then the large and small vases on this paper here. The first thing that I'm going to do is show you how to assemble the flowers. And we did those last week with the Jeweled Leaves collection. So here's some flowers here, and we'll be doing the same thing. The first thing that we want to do, I'm grabbing my paper trimmer, and I like to cut this into 4 sections. Then the next thing I like to do is to cut between the clusters. So there's large, medium, and small petals here. And then we have the circles for the center of the flower. So I'll go ahead and do that for all of them. Okay, so I have these all cut out into sections, and for each of these we can make 3 flowers, so that's 3 times 4, which is 12. And we'll also need some white circles for assembling the flowers. So I need 4 large, 4 medium, and 4 small. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off this section. When cutting the petals, I like to cut on the outside of the shape. So I'm going to go ahead and maneuver around, keeping all that scrap in one piece. So I'm going to cut out petal by petal, keeping the back intact. And what we're going to be doing, well, one option we have for that scrap is to do what we did with the mandalas, where we glued all the scraps onto a white piece of paper, and then we were able to add doodles to that. So I'll go ahead and cut all of these out. And there we have 5 petals for 1 flower. The other thing that we're going to need for the flower is a center, and I like to do it a different color. So here's the centers with this color, but I want to choose something different. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. Cutting on the outside of the black line. And the last thing that we need for the flower is one of these white circles, and here I want to cut on the inside of the black line. So for the collage paper, the colored paper, we want to go outside, and then for the white, we want to go inside. Now I'm showing you how to assemble 1 flower, but typically the way I do it is I cut out all my shapes, get them all lined up, and then I do all the collaging at once. But for demonstration purposes, I'm doing 1 flower, and then I'll do the rest off camera. Here I have a container with Mod Podge. My brush is in here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to set that white piece down, and I'm going to dip the tip of the petal and then press it onto the white. And I'm going to line up all 5 along the white circle. And it does not have to be exact, so having them absolutely equal along the radius is not important. We want some variety in our flowers. Next, what I'm going to do is put some Mod Podge on the center and then stick this down. And that's how to create the collaged flowers. I'm going to pull this up so it doesn't dry there, stuck. And you can see the back and then the front. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble all the flowers, again, keeping this intact if I can, and then I'll be back. Before I go ahead and cut all the petals out for the flowers, I'm going to also do the same thing for the vases. I want to cut these out. So same thing, I'm going to cut these into 4 sections. And then I'll go ahead and cut the vases out, same thing on the outside of the black line, keeping the background all in one piece. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing for all the vases. All right, so I'm back with everything cut out. This is how I like to do it. I like to have everything available to me, but if you want to just cut out a couple flowers, couple vases, and then assemble something, you can do it that way as well. So these are the scraps from the vases. Here's my large vases, the small. I like to use or keep this for collage fodder. I have 3 flowers from each of the collage papers. Now, these are the scraps that I did manage to keep intact. And within each of the colors, there were 6 circles. I didn't mention this before, but only 3 are used for the flowers. I did give you extra, and these are nice to have for assembling your collage. The next thing that I want to do is to decide on some background paper that I want to use. So I'm going to take a look at my sampler page. My flowers I made from this, my vases from this. So most likely I'm not going to choose these for the background. I would choose this lighter color, the lighter colors here, or the grayscales here. And for me, I'm going to just think about it. I might do all black and white. The way I have the pages laid out, we have many different types of papers. We have our quarter sheets. That's what we printed the flowers and vases on, but we have some half sheets. So depending on how they're lined up on there, I'm gonna decide. But you can look through the PDF and take a look at how they're lined up. I think I have this and this on a page, and this, or maybe it's this and this. I'll have to go ahead and look. But I think I'm going to print all the grayscale and then maybe choose one of these. So I may print out a total of 3 half sheets, and then I'll be back. Before I do that, I'm going to organize this all to the side. So I'm going to grab some bins. So I like to use these containers, and I'm going to put everything in there. So I like to throw everything organized like that. The flowers in one, and you can organize however you like, maybe just even moving them off to the side. But I'm going to do it like this. Sometimes the circles can be tricky. I'm actually picking them up quite well right now, but if they're tricky to pick up, sometimes I take a larger piece and you can actually kind of scoop them. That's a little tip for you. So just sliding them under, that's an easy way to pick them up. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go ahead and print my other collage papers. Okay, so I printed out the half sheets and I ended up printing out all 4 of them. So the lighter values, there's 2 pages, and then the grayscale, there's 2 pages. I wanted the opportunity to play around with them with you. The other thing that I have 2 choices for a substrate. So the substrate is what you're gluing the collage pieces to. This is a piece of chipboard. And then I also have a canvas panel. So this is canvas on wood. This can be a little bit trickier to work with. And when you're doing this, typically coming up with a plan for the borders, and I've showed you how to create nice borders in some of the other videos. Today, I think I'm going to use the chipboard. The chipboard's a nice option if you want to frame it. So the first thing that I want to do is decide on some vases that I want to use and then start picking out my background. The other thing that I did is I made a photocopy of the scrap page, or these are the scraps from the mandala that I doodled. So I made a copy of that because I might want to add some of these to the collage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at some vases, and what I can also do, I'm going to kind of line things up like this for now. Then I might go ahead and cut them so I can play around with them, but when I'm looking is just across the board. I could either pick out my 2 favorites, like I love this teal color, so maybe I'll do that and then decide on another color that I want to go with it. So probably not 2 teal ones. So out of these, I'm not sure yet. I think what I'm going to do is choose the grayscale ones and explore that option. What I'm going to do is cut these in half with my large scissors. I could have used the paper trimmer, but the scissors are right here. And within a collage, what we're looking for is some variation with color and with lightness and darkness. So what I'm looking at here, I'm going to most likely set this up as maybe using the rule of threes. And I didn't tell you what size this was. I'm going to grab my ruler because I want to double check before I say anything. So this is 8 by 8. And I could have guessed because my paper's 8.5 by 11. So this is 8 by 8. So first of all, what if I chose the 2 darkest values of the grayscale? And did something like that. So it would be kind of a darkish collage. And then looking at some of the flowers, do I like that dark on dark? Which is a really interesting look because we can add some lightness to it. We could add something like that. We could start thinking about some of these. So you see what I'm doing is if I'm doing something, there's a lot of dark, I'm thinking about how I can add some light color to it. So I could play with that. I'm going to just right on top to see what it looks like if I'm doing something more like this. So see how different this looks. And then if I do that, I could actually add some of the blacks from this piece here. So if I'm going to go for that, so you see how different? They both look really interesting, but very different. And then the same thing, looking at these, I could go with the lighter value. I'm not even going to cut this in half. I'm going to see what something like this looks like. So this will be a very colorful collage, and I could pull some of this in from that. So many different ways to go, and that's why it's nice. That's why I like to cut out all the vases, all the flowers, so that I can just explore and see all the possibilities. We also have these, so we could add some of these to the background. So I'm gonna pull these off and decide if I want to try to make this work. It's a different type of collage than I've done before, with a lot of darks in there. There might be, there will be ways to lighten it up. So I'm going to just sit and think on this for a moment. I've done many colorful ones. I could do kind of a halfway point, do the grayscale in the background, but instead of picking the two darkest, which is this and this, I could pick the middle range. So this is the middle, this is the lightest, darkest. I could go with the middle range, which I kind of like. Okay, I am going to commit to these two. And I'm probably going to do something like that. I'm going to move everything to the side and just do the background, glue that on first. I have my Mod Podge here. I also have a wet and dry cloths to keep my hands clean and dry and my workspace clean and dry. And the way I like to do this, I'm working on a silicone mat here. I did grab a larger brush, but nope, I found it. So with my larger brush, I'm going to glue right onto the back of the collage paper. And I like to do it on the collage paper versus on the substrate, because I want to really get that Mod Podge into the fibers of the paper. I find when I do that, it has a less likelihood of wrinkling and bubbling when it dries. So I really coated that enough so that it starting to curl. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. And there's enough on it also so that I can slide it and get it to where I want it. And then a nice handy thing to have is a credit card or a gift card to just press it into the surface. Okay, so that's the first sheet. And this was the other one I decided on. This one I'm going to cut first because I'm not going to need the whole thing. I'm going to go up to about here. So I'm going to cut the bottom. And flip it over and then put a nice coat of the Mod Podge on the back. And then I'm going to go ahead and place it where I want it. You don't have to do this. There's so many layouts that we can do. We don't even have to do it in a straight line, but this is what I've decided on for this one here. So what I want to do now, I'm going to just rub it down. Then I'm going to go ahead and trim the edges now so I can see what my layout is. This corner is popping up a little bit, so I'm going to glue that down. And as it's drying, it's really curling, but I found that typically it'll flatten out, so I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to reorganize my workspace because I kind of was flopping everything around. So I want to clean that up, wash this off, and then I'll be back when this piece is dry. All right, I'm back and this has dried, and see it flattened on its own. So now I want to just, again, play around. I have all my things here. The other thing that I grabbed was this. This is from the monthly journaling session. So I might add some of this to that. And then I play around a lot with the mini collages. So with the sampler, so I have a ton of scraps left over here. I might pull from these as well. So the first thing I want to do, I had said that I probably wouldn't do two teal, but now I'm thinking that I do like that look. I could do two different colors, but when I ended up seeing if I like that, ooh, that looks really nice too. I'm going to go with the two teal ones, unless I change my mind again. Okay, so at this point, the other thing I want to think about is the flowers that I want to use. And with that, also considering putting the stems on there. I typically like to put the stems on the flowers, and I'll show you how to do that. I actually showed you last week in the bundle 1 week 1 how to do that. Pretty sure we did that. So looking at the flowers, how many we want to do. Do we want to do a whole bunch of flowers? Actually, now I'm thinking about doing that. Something like that. And then if I did do a whole bunch, then I wouldn't end up putting stems on them because this would block it out. So now that's what I'm going towards right now. I'm going to take the vases out because I want to play it. Well, let's see. I want to play around with the background a little bit. I'm going to cut some of this. I really like to end up using a little bit of the journal page. It gives a nice personal touch. This is a piece of chipboard that I use when I'm doing smaller pieces, so I don't have to keep on cleaning off my silicone mat. So here I'm going to add the Mod Podge to the back. And then I'm going to put this behind the vase, but I'm just eyeing it how I want to do it. So maybe something like that. This brings in a really nice light color to the collage, the white, which adds interest. And then I think I'm going to add this up top. Sometimes I put the Mod Podge on my surface of the collage. Other times I do it, well, most of the time I do it to the back of the collage paper. Sometimes when the pieces are smaller, I'll glue on this, but I still find that if I put it directly on, it gives it time to soak into the fibers and it's less likely to wrinkle and bubble. So for the most part, I try to do that. So adding some light against the edge. And I'm trying to scrape off. What happens is when my hands start collecting the Mod Podge, it ends up making the paper kind of dirty. So trying to remember to just be mindful about keeping my hands clean. Otherwise, I end up with messy spots that sometimes I can try to rub off, but if I can't, then I'll cover them with something, either a piece of collage paper or some acrylic markers. So for these, I'm thinking I'm going to cut them right in half. Moving everything to the side now. Just going to focus on the background. So I'm going to go ahead and play around with the background and make some decisions, glue pieces down. And we'll see what we have when we're ready for the vases. Okay, so at this point, I added a lot of things to the background. Many things may be covered by the flowers and vases. I'm not sure yet, but I didn't concern myself too much with that, or much at all. What I want to do now is add a coat of Mod Podge to the entire surface. So I want to seal that. Yesterday in Collage Tip Tuesday, we learned how to do a whitewash and do some stamping with white acrylic paint. So I might add some of that here. But I'm going to wait for it to dry. I'm going to coat this, let it dry. I'll test out the flowers and the vases on top, and then I'll decide if I want to do some white paint on the surface. Okay. I mean, this collage right here is looking amazing as it is. I could skip the flowers and vases, but this is my floral collage, so I'm going to go ahead and explore. So maybe it's not a typical layout with 2 vases that I had originally intended, but I'm going to see. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to clean up my workspace, and then I'll be back. All right, I'm back with my collage, which is dry. I always like to make sure that I've put the cap on my Mod Podge and my brush so it doesn't dry out. And for my larger brush, I wrap that with a plastic wrap so that doesn't dry while I'm working here. So, oh, the other thing I did is I added this little piece here. This is from the scraps. And I just thought that would go nice because I had this orange strip here. So I did take out my acrylic paint, the titanium white, and I am thinking that I do want to go ahead and play around with putting a coat on there. So a whitewash, also known as a glaze. So a glaze is just a very transparent layer of paint over the surface. And I'm going for white. I could also try it with a color within my palette. But for today, for now, I'm going to stick with the white. I have a jar with some water in it and a paintbrush. And what I want to do is water down this paint. I'm just grabbing it and mixing it with this water that was on my brush. I'm going to put a coat across the surface, and I'm thinking that I might do it across everything. And this might seem funny because we have all this beautiful stuff under there, but I'm going to try this. And because that Mod Podge is on there, I could wash this right off if I want to. So I'm lightening everything up. What I want is an interesting background, but I want the flowers and vases to show. I'm adding more water because I'm probably going to put a paper towel across this just to lighten it. And as I'm doing this, I'm deciding if I want to do the bottom 2, which I do think I want to do. I'm going to get a coat on the whole thing right now. Just exploring as I go. You could make this collage as simple or as detailed as you want. You could have just not put all these little pieces on and just stuck with the 2 pieces that we did. I'm going to grab this paper towel, which does have a texture to it. And it's pulling it up. And I'm actually liking it just like that now. So it pulled it up in different places. I can still see a lot of the detail there. And then the next thing I want to do is add some texture by stamping. And what I pulled out is the bubble wrap, the cardboard, the corrugated cardboard, and I showed you that yesterday in Collage Tip Tuesday. And when I say yesterday, you can look on the playlist and it should be very easy to go back and see what the day before is, but it was Collage Tip Tuesday and it was about whitewashing and textures. So I just soaked up some of that water there. I'm getting my brush because this I want a thicker coat. So I'm brushing some paint on the cardboard, and then I'm going to add some texture in different places. Okay, this is looking great. Now I want some more paint, and I'll probably do the bubble wrap. So with this, I'm going to wet my brush. It all depends on the thickness of your paint. This is pretty thick. And then I want the bubble side, and I'm going to paint that. And this is nice because we have some circles in different areas, and then the circles of the bubble wrap really look nice with that. And speaking of circles, a nice thing to collect is tops from things, from containers, things like this. I think this was from like some type of like an Ace wrap, pill bottle. So just different tops. I'm going to use this thing here, and I'm going to add some circles. So what I want to do is rub that in the paint and then add some circles in different areas. Just putting some water in it. Just spreading it out so that I could actually do this. I could rub it or paint on it. And then maybe I want to do another size too. And this is different as well. It's a little bit bigger and thinner. So play around with it, see whether painting directly on it works better for you. All right, so that's a really nice, interesting background. So with my brush, I'm going to put that in the water because I don't want that to dry out. This stuff I'm going to just set aside. The paint's not completely dry, so if there are areas, I'm going to clean my hands, but I could also use this. Actually, I don't think I'm going to use this. Even using my cotton swab, I usually have a cotton swab with water nearby. And what I'm thinking about doing is trying to rub off some areas to bring back the collage paper just to see what that's like. So just darkening up areas by taking off the paint. Just showing a window of different areas. So it's just going to depend on how dry the paint is. I can typically get some of it off if I want. So see if I want to bring that back. Again, because the Mod Podge is on there, I can do this. If I didn't have it coated, all that paint would have soaked right up into the paper. And it's also, the surface is nice enough that if it's not coming off just with this, I can actually use my nail, my fingernail, if I want to scrape some. I guess I'd just be careful not to scrape through the paper, but I don't think I will. So I brought some of that back. I don't know if there's other places I want to bring back. Now it's starting to dry. Okay, so that's done. I'm gonna go ahead and let that paint dry, and then we'll be back to play around with the vases and the flowers. The background is completely dry now. So what I want to do at this point is to pull out my vases and my flowers and come up with a layout that I like. I'm going to throw these down. I want to get a variety on each one. I'm looking at something like this. I could do many flowers. I could do a couple flowers. If I did a couple, I'd want to put some stems in there. But for this one, I'm thinking of doing a whole cluster on each vase. All right, so I'm going to move the flowers aside. Lay down the vases, glue them down. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of chipboard. I have my Mod Podge and my brush here. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the Mod Podge to the back. And then place it where I want it. Okay, and now I'm going to do the flowers. I'm going to lay them out again. I have large flowers and small flowers, and I may do most of the large over on this side. I'm going to see. I'll just lay them out again. So something like that. They're not going to go back in the exact same spot. That's going to be hard for me to do, but probably do like that. Okay. So for these, I'm going to apply the Mod Podge to each of the flowers. Okay, so look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So big clusters of flowers. The nice teal vases. I love those. And then a really, really interesting, beautiful background. What I want to do now is coat all the flowers in the vases that I just laid down. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry. I'll clean everything up and then I'll come back so that we can take a look at it once it's dry. And here we have the completed collage for today. The only thing that I'll probably go back and do is to add some marks and doodles with my acrylic markers, and I'll let this sit for a day or two and then I'll go back, but I'm going to just show you here. I have my color palette for the Teal Tango collection. So I have the reddish purple, the reds, the orange yellow, the teals, and then I have black and white. So I'll probably go back and do that. And then I also wanted to show you what this will look like in a frame. So that's why I ended up doing it on this chipboard so that it would fit nicely into this frame here. And there we have it. Isn't that gorgeous? So I hope you enjoyed today's session. We went through some really wonderful ideas. There's obviously plenty of, well, I'd have to cut out more flowers. I was going to say there's plenty of scraps left over to make multiple collages, but I'd go ahead and create some more flowers since I decided to do big clusters of them here. But I'm excited to continue to explore the Teal Tango collection, and I hope you are as well. Thank you for joining me today.